center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace.
Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Well, today we're going to talk about what I'm prepping for, right? Me and Kevin, we're kind of been in the business for a while. We're kind of go-to preppers kind of thing. And there's a lot of guys out there and a lot of people with a lot more crazy stuff than we do. But, I thought people might like some insight of where we're at and what we're actually putting most of our energy into and what we're focused on. First, I guess a little housekeeping. I want to say that, if you guys want to enjoy the show live when we do our thing, you can be in the comments and the chat, and we keep everything going. You may want to subscribe to the Prepping Badass YouTube channel, and you won't miss a trick. Also, anywhere you do it, we appreciate like, subscribe, comment, Spotify. We'd love your reviews, Apple, all of it. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there, but let's kind of jump into it. So one of the things, I prepare for a lot of things. You guys know I kind of worry about EMPs, and a lot of things have redundant preps where we store food, we, buy guns and ammo, we do different things like that, right? Where, there's a lot of things going on, and that's going to make me better prepared having food and water storage. I'm better prepared for a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, civil unrest, inflation,
Right.
all these things get covered. So, the steps that we take have redundancy. Am I worried about an EMP? Yeah, I kind of am. But there's one thing that kind of looms over me and I feel like impending, and kind of inevitable is the basically inflation. I kind of feel like the gap between the haves and the have-nots is getting further and further apart, and I feel like if you don't kind of get into the station where you should be, you might miss it. Like that time may go away. If we don't, how people think of there's that movie A Knight's Tale, that kind of medieval time kind of thing back in the day. There are the serfs and there are the kings and the royalty, and it's almost impossible for a serf to change their status,
Right.
to go from one to the other. And I'm worried more and more that if you don't end up on the right side of this, now, obviously, none of us are, well, maybe you guys, not me, none of us, me and Kevin aren't in that whole Bill Gates kind of, league of good or even that far ahead of anybody else. The big thing is having your stuff squared away so you're not desperate. And
Yeah.
I think that is my goal, to put yourself in a position where you're not desperate to, need stuff.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that really has me focused on this, we talk about a lot of they talk about the great reset. People say, "Oh, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy." You know, that's the whole thing, and I was doing some research for the show, and Hillsdale, I think, put something in an article about the Great Reset. And it was funny because I got so distracted by the fact check on the bottom that I didn't even read the Hillsdale article. Like, it didn't even get there. It was something about, they were like, this is fake news, this is false. So it was the funniest thing, and I actually put it in the link. But the headline was, fact check, the Great Reset is not a secret plan or a secret plan mastermind by global elites to limit freedom and push radical policy. And it's funny because if you actually read through it, they're like, it's not secret. They have a website. And I was
That's
like,
why it's false. It's not a secret plan, bro.
I mean, there's a little bit more to it. They explain it away, but that's pretty much their anchor to their whole argument. They're like, no, it's about how we're going to come together and be a global community and steering markets towards fairer outcomes. Well, that's the problem. I think it's all relative, like fairer for who? Are
Right. Well, I mean, it's no secret right now with the amount of inflation that's been going on. Grocery prices are going way up. Energy costs are going way up. Gas is going up. Everything's going up right now except for paychecks. So, I mean, how do people survive? Well, they're doing it on debt. People are getting deeper and deeper in debt. Credit card balances are going through the roof all across the country, not just for you and your neighbor. Everybody's getting in debt, and that's really dangerous. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's if you're making $40,000 a year and you have $40,000 worth of debt, good luck, bro.
Yeah,
You know?
that's it. And it's, we're not trying to make you feel bad. That's not the thing. I mean, honestly, hey, there's ways out of it. And by that I mean like bankruptcy and things. But
Right.
I mean, they don't put you in debtor's prison or something. We're not a
Yeah, but might not be living in that $400,000 house that you bought,
that
and
you
you
were
could
dreaming.
afford then. You could afford when you bought it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think our government is doing a great job of masking how bad things are getting and how bad things are for people. And I actually have some evidence and some proof that I'm going to lay out for you guys that kind of help this make sense. The big thing is, right, we all know that inflation is going up. Things are costing more at the grocery store, right? When you go get gas, it's more expensive. It's not brutal. It hasn't. I mean, obviously, people show, $1.90 when Trump was in office and $3.50 now, whatever. That's a lot more. It's significant, but that's like the least of your problems,
Right.
when you're paying your bills. Like right now, your electric bill is probably double. And since, 4 years ago. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make a comparison of Trump and whatever. Bottom line, if Trump gets elected, it's still going to be crappy, right?
Yeah.
Things are going down a bad road. I'm not
If there was a
saying,
simple solution for the problem that problems that we're having,
yeah,
somebody would have already done it. There is no
right.
simple solution.
As far as the economy, it's a sinking ship. And I know nobody wants to hear that, but that's how I see it. And now work with me. So basically, everything's more expensive. Your electric bill, sure as heck, if you buy a house and have interest rate right now, high sevens is where people are coming in on a regular first mortgage, and that's with good credit.
Yeah,
That's
and that's
when you're ready to
ridiculous.
go. You have a
7%
big
is
down payment,
crazy over 30 years.
and and those fees, it gets you. All right, so you're buying a house, and the thing is, house prices are up. They're not down. It's not like, they're relative. Now, sales are a little slower. But that's something. So here's the next thing that should concern you. You're like, well, I already got my house and I got it situated. Or, I inherited grandma's house and I'm good. All right, that's cool. Now, we're going to talk about second mortgages and refinance and all that. It's going to get a little scary for you. So 80% of mortgages are backed by the government, meaning they're FHA, Freddie Mac,
Right.
Fannie Mae, that kind of thing. 85% of delinquent mortgages are backed by the federal government. That means we're all on the hook for that.
Right.
That's not cool.
That means the bank gets paid, but it doesn't mean that you get to keep your house.
11% of government loan or of mortgages are currently delinquent. Okay, 11%. That's pretty high. But the problem is those numbers only reflect like government backed mortgages. All right. Because that's all they're really checking. Those are the only people that have to really report. Now you're saying, well, the percentage should be the same. But I'm going to tell you something. There's private mortgages. And what happens is And you're thinking, well, that's got to be few and far between. But it's not really that few and not that far in between. And nobody really has solid stats on that. So that's where it gets a little hanky. What's happening is when people start to get behind on their payments, they get a phone call from somebody who wants to invest in real estate. You know, all those courses you keep seeing advertised on your Facebook
Mm-hmm.
feed and that kind of thing. Somebody's calling them up and saying, hey, you know, I see you're having trouble with your mortgage. How about I guarantee that nobody will foreclose on you in the next 5 years if you pay, you know, your minimums or whatever, and I'll bring your loan current and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And they write in deals and they say, let me assume your mortgage, which is not really, most mortgages aren't assumable. But what they do is they write up a contract that basically they still are paying the mortgage. The
Mm-hmm.
lender is still first, but you're paying, like, it's a big, you know, it's a smoke show, right? And so what's happening is these people are holding the mortgages and the people are getting further in debt.
Right.
And because they obviously are coming at a higher interest rate or something like that. Now, here's where it gets even scarier. The federal government is starting to see things going off the rails. And so they're like, hey, how can we? I want to say stop it, but it's not. It's how can we delay this a little bit longer,
Mm-hmm.
is really the way I read it. But believe it or not, the federal government is now backing, and this just got approved. I actually, if you're watching us on YouTube, I have a little proposal here on the screen. But basically, Freddie Mac is purchasing single family second mortgages. Now, these are your um, like home equity loan,
Right.
Helix, and you know the line of credit, all
Mm-hmm.
this nonsense, right? And it's all good stuff, and it has a purpose if you're using it wisely, right? Like if you're buying more properties and able to leverage things, you know, taking equity out of your house is not a bad play. It's what you do with money that you borrow. It's
Right.
what you do, and you want to make sure that the world isn't going to drop out from under you.
Mm-hmm.
In 2009, everything went way up, the real estate market. It got really high, and everybody was like, cool, if I just buy a million properties and I leverage, and then the market kind of crashed and people weren't getting the rents. And then it was like, oh crap, now I'm leveraged all over the place. And a lot of people even lost their primary residence because they
Mm-hmm.
had pulled all the equity out of it.
Right.
So what I'm getting at is, so the federal government is saying to lenders, hey, if you do an equity loan, then don't worry about it. You should give it to people who don't even really qualify. Like, so say my mortgage is $2,000 a month, right? Because I have a crappy interest rate and whatever. But I also, because all of a sudden the real estate market has doubled in the last 3 or 4 years, I have $100,000 in equity in my house.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, hey, look, you're 2 months behind in your mortgage, but if we give you an equity line, I can give you 80 grand, bring you to caught up, and you'll have all this money. Well, people are like, great, you know, everything's easier and things go on. And they don't mind lending it, even though you couldn't afford your mortgage before. Now you
Mm-hmm.
can't afford your mortgage and a half. But
Right.
the thing is, you'll be able to afford it for maybe 2 years because you got this big
Because
lump
you
sum
got
of
that money.
cash.
But yeah, they're not you people that get that. A lot of them aren't using it to
To
save
buy
in the
a boat,
bank to make
to
those
buy
payments.
that new truck with the
The new
$700
truck,
car payment.
I gotta have a new
Car
truck.
payment. Right.
Can't
You
have
gotta
something
get to
breaking
work.
down.
Yeah, you got to get to work, Kevin. You need something
I know
reliable.
somebody that did that specifically. They
Yeah.
took out a home equity loan.
Hmm.
They amongst some of the things they bought was a $700 cuckoo clock because
Yes.
they felt like they
Kevin,
needed it.
you're
That
feeling a little cuckoo,
$12,000 they
aren't you?
got
Yeah.
was gone immediately.
Hmm.
Immediately.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's it. People are just pulling this money out. And the thing is, though, it's going to buy the economy time.
Mhm.
And that's why I believe, like they may make some other argument, but this is why I believe the federal government is pushing it. But the problem is, one, they're putting you and me on the hook for it because
Right.
taxpayers are the ones who back these loans. Two, you're feeding into all the conspiracy theories of BlackRock and all these companies are buying all the real estate. And it really seems to fit that you will own nothing.
Right.
And, right. So, but you're happy, you're dumb and happy right now because you got a little money, a little cash in your pocket for right now.
Mhm.
Now, I guess my big warning with this is don't give up the equity in your house. Because the problem is a lot of these, believe it or not, they actually, FHA and Freddie Mac have said 9.5% is the example of where they're suggesting these loans might be at.
Mhm.
9.5 is crap.
That's
Right?
crazy. Yeah, you're
And-
getting towards credit card numbers
Right.
there.
They're extending, who qualifies for this stuff. And now your house is leveraged at like 100% of its equity. I mean, I know they'll tell you, oh, it's 80% is all we'll loan out. Okay,
Mhm.
whatever. But you're right at the max, right? And I believe that these houses aren't really worth exactly what your thing on Zillow says.
Yeah.
When you look on Zillow and you're like, oh, 460,000. And the thing is, a few people might get out early and be able to be like, hey,
And
I'll sell it
be
and
able to
get
make
that
it.
460 or whatever the heck it says it's worth. But I think once people are stuck and start trying to sell their houses, it's going to be a no-go.
Yeah.
And
And
things are gonna get
that's the
bad.
problem. Like I have a significant amount of equity in my house.
Right.
But if I sold my house, I just have to buy another expensive house. You know what I mean? Just because
yeah.
I'm making more from the sale doesn't mean I'm going to get a good deal on the next place. I still have to keep all my stuff somewhere,
Right. And the thing is, your mortgage payment might be based on 2, 3, 4% interest rate.
Right.
All of a sudden, you're going to a 7% interest rate or 8% interest rate.
Mhm.
Now you're not looking so cool with that payment each month. It makes a big difference. So I guess the big thing and where I'm going with this is it's all about how much value you have that are real assets. Because, that's the thing. Rich people don't hurt with inflation.
Right.
Because guess what? If I own everything, all my stuff just went up in value.
Right.
Right. If I have
Right.
cool cars and I have cool houses. Now, I mean, we'll say that, on paper, it goes up. Your house goes from 100,000 to 400,000, right? Over the last 7 years, it's
Mhm.
gone up in value. Now, it might only be worth 400,000, 300,000.
Mhm.
But I have value, right?
Yeah.
I have real equity.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
see a lot of people that don't have a firm understanding of how that sort of stuff works. They complain. They'd be like, "Well, Jeff Bezos, if he gave all his money away, it would be all this, like it's a pie, and everybody has a certain amount of
Yeah, that's it.
slices that, and he's got the bigger slice, but he doesn't have like $1 billion sitting in a bank account. You know what I mean? He has
It's out
assets,
there working, right?
right? That money is making him money, and you know, if you the whole world is a goddamn kitchen. Make your own fucking pie.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the way to look at it. You can't say, "Oh, he's got half the pie, and now everybody else has to split the rest
right.
of it."
We
That's
got
not really how it works.
right. We got to keep making the pies,
Mhm.
and that's one of the things, right? So people look at it like that. So imagine there's a finite amount of resources, Kevin. There's only 100 pieces of gold in the world. Okay,
Mhm.
but now we're printing money, right? And we print billions and billions. Well, if we all want gold and gold is the goal, then all of a sudden it takes a lot more of those dollars to buy one of those pieces of gold because we have a lot of dollars going around.
Mhm.
But here's the cool thing. If you have some rich, evil miser guy like Scrooge McDuck, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And he's got the big vault. But I actually
Mhm.
saw an episode where he talked about that big vault. And he said that was just his day-to-day operating money. that he's
Okay.
not actually hoarding it. So
hmm
don't think that that's what he's doing. It's out there working for him. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
people think, oh, I need the big gold stash. You need that money working for you. But
I saw
anyway,
something recently
yeah,
there talking about the richest people in comic book land.
yeah.
It's
Richie Rich.
Richie Rich is one of them. Batman,
Mm,
Bruce Wayne, but the richest person in all of comic book land is actually Scrooge McDuck.
yes. That guy's a rock star. He doesn't mess around. And he just constantly dropping that financial advice. I mean,
hmm
you can't lose with that, right?
Yep.
Um, so anyway, so you have the set amount, but the thing is, when somebody's a billionaire, right? And I'll use a dramatic example, right? So say that there's only $3 billion of all the dollar bills in the whole world, and a billionaire has 1 billion. He has a third of all the money.
hmm
Well, guess what? If he takes that money and hides it under his mattress, that just makes less in the general supply out there trying to buy gold. And
hmm
that's actually going to bring up the value of gold by him not spending it.
Right.
Now, if he goes the other way and he spends the money by going in and buying, hey, I'm going to have a fancy yacht built. Well, guess
hmm
what? A lot of people are getting paid to make that yacht.
Right.
And hey, I'm going to get a new condo on the beach. Somebody's getting paid for that. You
hmm
know, the money, it's not finite, like Kevin said, it goes around. So I'm just saying there's a lot going on. And I'm not saying run out and buy assets, because I think my goal, like I said, the episode is what I'm doing is to be out of debt
Yeah.
and to, pay things off and not be in a desperate spot. But I
hmm
also have been slowly building up to where I'm not going to be in a desperate situation, even if my job goes away, even if money goes away. And I'm not talking about by having 30 grand in the bank or 100 grand in the bank. That's not what I mean. Because honestly, I feel like that could disappear.
hmm
I feel like that's going to be robbed through inflation. I feel like the government might just say, you know what? Anybody who has more than 5 grand in the bank, they're just greedy and I'm going to take it. That
hmm
wouldn't surprise me.
Right.
To me, that's not, not really an acceptable, outcome.
And unless you're a billionaire, because those people are using that money to create jobs, not like
Right.
you just hoarding it, you
Just
know?
hoarding. You guys are all hoarding money,
Yeah.
right? That's
But there
what's
is,
happening.
like you said, there is a bigger and bigger gulf between the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor in the United States. And
Yes.
if you make $30,000 a year, you're in the top 2%. You know what I mean? There's people all over the world that are starving to death.
Right. Of the world, not of the
Of the
US.
world. But if
Right.
you're making $30,000 in the United States, you know, that's welfare
You're not
line.
doing good.
That's
Yeah.
like you need to get some food stamps and get your shit together.
Right. No, exactly. But so that's the thing. So what preps am I actually doing? So, all right, that's why I have the rabbits. That's why I
hmm
have the chickens. Now, mind you, I'm paying a fair amount in feed because feed is freaking expensive. I talked about there was a video I put out earlier in the week that, I have turkeys and only a couple of them. But man, I think by the time they're grown, they're going to have cost me about $50 a piece to,
Yeah,
worth of feed, and that's kind of ridiculous.
yeah.
Um,
And I
and
mean, it's hard when you're raising animals like that because you can let them out and they can free range and they can do a lot for themselves. But
yes,
also, the foxes and the coyotes and the hawks
right.
also,
Now
are free range.
my chicken's free range and they offset a lot of the bills there.
hmm
I guess my wife read some kind of rules about turkeys and chickens aren't supposed to be eating each other's poop or whatever. I don't know. And I'm like, lots of people have turkeys and chickens together, but she's
hmm
worried about it. So we have them kind of in a like finite cage. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now mind you, I say a cage, not like government approved size living space. I
hmm
mean like 20 foot by 10 foot for 4
Right,
chickens. It
right.
gets moved every day or whatever, a
hmm
chicken tractor kind of thing. And, whatever. But all right. So I'm growing my own food, right? I'm out there planting. Um, stocking up on some food storage, right? I'm making sure that I have a full pantry kind of thing. And this is not something that I went out and did over the last week or the last month. This is something that I've been building up over time. And that's what people don't get. A lot of people get overwhelmed with prepping because they're like, ooh, it's so daunting. It's so much. Do I buy guns and ammo? Do I buy, food? Do I buy, clothes? Do I pay off my debt? It's overwhelming. And the idea is to slowly take more steps as they become available. And I
Mhm.
think your first priority should really be to, once you have a little cushion, what is it? Uh, uh, Dave Ramsey is
Yeah.
always talking about, you know, you set aside maybe $1,000 and then, the emergency fund. Well, you should set aside some money for the emergency fund and you should set aside some food for the emergency preps. You should set aside, and maybe that's 2 weeks worth of food, right? For the
Mhm.
get start, extra. All right. And you set aside some extra, maybe an extra 5-gallon gas can in the yard to kind of keep things going just in case they get a little hairy. But once you
Mhm.
get these things set, your priority should probably be paying off debt.
Right.
That's always been my approach, right? And
Mhm.
I've done a lot to structure my life to be that way. And now I'm doing, reasonably well in the world that we live in. I'm still not going out to eat much. I still drive by McDonald's and I'm like, oh, I can't afford that, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah. It
but
says
I'm doing where I'm happy,
70% of people in the United States now consider fast food a luxury.
right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean, it used to be that fast food, it used to be fast food was cheap, fast. It tasted like shit, but it was cheap. Now it's expensive, it's slow, and it still tastes like shit. So I mean, you know,
yeah,
it's give
it's
and
funny
take.
because I've spent a long time getting here. And it's funny because now when I go do something or I want something, I don't have to use a credit card. I'm like, "Ooh, I'm rich." I didn't
Yeah.
have to use a credit card for that. Did you see that? I just went in there with money, and I'm like, and that's my standard of rich, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When you don't have to think about the money, that's a whole other level.
That's a
But
different level.
that's
Yeah.
the mega rich, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Me, it's I can go to McDonald's and I'm not putting it on a credit card, so I'm one of the bougie class.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I went to
paid that
McDonald's twice.
$50 in cash.
Right.
Yeah, that $8 hamburger now. McDonald's is selling the Big Mac is $8 now. $5 for a large fry. It's getting rough out there, man.
Getting
It's
rough
rough for
out there.
everybody. I
That's
can't
it.
tell you the last time can't tell you the last time I ate McDonald's or any fast food, honestly.
Yeah, no,
Not because I'm healthy. It's
no,
because I can't afford it.
can't afford it. It's gonna make us all skinny, right? We're gonna get
Hmm.
skinny because we have to drive by McDonald's too often. No, it's a crazy world out there. And that's the thing. Like I don't really go to fast food places like that, but you get my point. And
Yeah.
it's well, no, I go to bougie fast food, like something better, like Cookout or wherever.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where people go, but you get the point. Um, Another thing I wanted to talk about, and this is even crazier. People say, "Oh, they're the government, they're not trying to control us." Well, they kind of are. So, Europe. Now, again, you're like, "Well, Europe, I don't live in Europe." And maybe some of you do, right? But
Yeah.
Europe has the whole ESG score thing. And they have they just it was up for debate and I believe it just passed. I've seen some news reports that say that it just passed. Again, all this stuff I'm talking about the mortgages, about the news stories, about the fake news with the Great Reset. I put it all in the comments so you can go and check my sources and see what I'm talking about, or maybe you're just interested and want to learn more about it. But another thing with the ESG stuff in Europe, so they basically had proposed a law that anybody who does business in Europe is going to have to meet these standards. Now, ESG basically it encompasses a lot of stuff, and this is actually off the ESG website and the proposed laws. They want to address climate change. They say mitigation, climate change adaptation, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, transition to a circular economy. I don't even know what that means. Pollution prevention and control. And then here's the last one: protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. So it includes wokeness, it includes taking care of the planet, it includes global warming, if that's outside taking care of the planet, I don't really know. But the thing is with this, so what they proposed is that every company who does business with Europe is going to have to fall in line with these guidelines. So even though your laws in your country, your state, don't apply, if you sell to any company that does business in Europe, or if you sell your stuff to Europe, you have to comply with all these standards that they approve of. And that's wokeness, that's all kinds of craziness. And I don't know, that gets a little scary. Because think about it, Amazon, they sell in Europe. So if I sell my products on Amazon, does that mean I have to comply? It kind of does. Now, I heard news stories about this, and they were, a lot of scare tactics and, oh, whatever. But basically, it's a staggered timeline of when these things kind of happen. So like the beginning of this year, if you had 500 employees or more, you would have to start collecting data and track it, right? And reporting in 25. After 25, you had certain criteria you had to meet. And basically things keep escalating until 28, where, it's kind of a full-on compliance to all this stuff. But now China's not going to comply with this. So does that mean that Europe is going to stop buying from China? I find that hard to believe. I imagine it all kind of falls apart with that. And that's how it works in my fantasy mind. But it also, this stuff, it's about hiring diversity. And, diversity has a whole new meaning. It just doesn't mean, oh, I have people who are Irish, and oh, people who came from Africa, or people who, came from Italy, and look at my diverse. No, it's all kinds of things. I have handicapped people. And I'm not saying any of these things are bad, but you can only comply with so much without diluting everything.
Damaging your
specific criteria, right? You kind of hurt your brand. And so that's something to think about. And I'm not saying that by being inclusive you hurt your brand. I'm saying that you have to be very limited on the pool you can draw from, and that's going to hurt things,
right?
But I don't know. Kevin, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are right now, get your credit cards paid off, get your debt paid off. That interest is killing you, and people are getting deeper and deeper in debt everywhere. Don't be one of those people. Right now, it's real easy to buy all the things you're used to having on credit with great interest rates that you're going to be paying off for the next 70 years.
And that's it.
I remember I'd gotten a credit card bill. This is a few years now. I'd gotten a credit card bill where the estimated time for payoff, I'd have been 71 years old if I paid just like the payments. Now I had to get out. Like that scared the shit out of me. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the sort of stuff you got to get out from under. You don't want to be paying that McDonald's meal. You don't want to be paying that off for the next 40
years, right? And that's one of the things, right? So people don't seem to comprehend, right? If I have a credit card bill of $3,000 and because again, to some people, $3,000 is insurmountable. To other people, that number is 20 grand. Other people have 60 grand in credit card debt. It's all relative to your income, right? And that level of insurmountable is different,
Right. But the cost of products that you're buying is going to keep going up. and
Right.
your income isn't going to go up as fast.
And
So when you're
it's
getting in
not
debt now,
close right now. Yeah.
yeah, when you're getting in debt now, it's only going to get worse going
And the
forward.
thing, like I see with teenagers and young people, maybe it's not teenagers, young people in their 20s and stuff, where it's like, oh, I have $3,000 in credit card debt, but they don't bat an eye at going to McDonald's and spending $20 or
Mhm.
going and getting a $7 coffee drink on the way to work or whatever. But I'm
Mhm.
like, do you realize if you didn't get that $7 coffee drink every day for the month and you put that money on the credit card, because that $7 coffee drink, because you, and even if you're paying cash for it, because you have the debt on the credit card, that $7 coffee drink is going to cost you, probably $20-$30 over time.
Right.
It's funny. I was just watching this girl talking about her student loans, and I actually didn't really realize it was this bad. But she
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I have $80,000 in student loans," and she's like, "I've been paying on it for 6 years." And she goes, "And last year, I knew if I wanted to get ahead, I had to do like a bulk payment, to start to get on top of it."
Mhm.
And so she started with 80,000. Last year, she did a bulk payment of 6,000 on top of her minimum
Right.
required. Right? And she's like, and I just looked at where I'm at. And she started with 80. She paid a bulk payment of 6,000 and she still owes $76,000.
Mhm.
And she's like, she just started crying, and she's like, I don't understand. And then she goes and does the math. And paying the minimum payments, she had already paid 120,000 towards her
Right.
student loans, and
Mhm.
she's only gotten, $4,000 ahead. That's
Right.
insane.
I think it's
That
I think it's crazy, and I hear these stories all the time. People saying that they started out with $60,000, they paid $500 a month on these loans, and now they have $80,000 because they've been paying less than the interest.
right.
And that, I mean, when they talk about like Biden talks about the student loan forgiveness and shit like that, and we can all talk shit about it and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is, we're giving 18-year-olds hundreds of
Insurmountable debt.
thousands of dollars, and we're like, they're smart enough to make wise decisions when it comes to this, and
And
they get
are
a
they?
degree in art
Are they?
history,
Yeah.
and then they're fucked. The rest of their
Yeah.
life is
Yeah.
just fucked,
Yeah. It
because
is. And
a
it's
decision you
insurmountable.
made when you're 18 and you don't know a goddamn thing when you're 18.
Right. And that's dude, that's what enrages me, right? So my wife keeps getting on me on this because she's like, well, it is kind of unrealistic what we do to these kids and,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Now, again, we're totally screwing the kid who said, you know what? I can see this picture and I see that's a horrible decision. So the few kids who do make good decisions, they get screwed when the rest of us pay it off,
Right.
right? Because they're going to be the ones who are paying it off in addition to everybody else,
Right.
right?
Right.
But on the flip side, these other kids are totally getting the shaft. And so it's one of those, you don't know what to do, because you're
Right.
like, oh, that just doesn't work.
If
So
you're
here's
18,
the
you're listening to the show and you're thinking about taking $150,000 out for
no
college,
go.
let me tell you this: get a job as a plumber, because you can
Yep.
get that electrician certificate in about 6 months.
And there's nothing wrong with making the money and then going to school if that's
Right.
what you want. And it turns out you can do it. You can actually make enough money to pay for school without loans,
Mm-hmm.
especially with all these tax credits and shenanigans the government gives you. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, if you put effort into applying for scholarships, there are some out there. There's not a lot out there, but there's some out there available to people.
Yeah, and
And
it's
especially,
it's degree dependent too. I mean, you're a
yeah,
lot more likely to get grants for like engineering or something like that than
a girl that is doing math and engineering, that's a big thing. And,
Mhm.
Kevin, maybe you just need to identify.
I was thinking about getting the implants. I'm not
And then
sure,
you could maybe get the
it's
degree. I'm not sure how that works.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the rules are. Do I have to have the implants to identify, or can I just like get a bra and stuff it with
I think you can just
tissue
say,
paper and
I think you just wake up that day and
just
and
say,
embrace it. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Um,
I
I'm sure.
identify as having double D's.
Yeah. No, but I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's options available to you, is all I'm saying. Hey, you do you, right?
Mm-hmm.
All
Right.
right. So here's the thing, though, right? So these kids, they're in all through high school, all the teachers are saying, at least with my kids, right,
Mm-hmm.
was you need to go to college. You're going to be nothing without college. You need to study. You need to go to college and pay for that no matter what it takes. That's what you need to do. And I don't see any teachers, and I don't think my kids have had any teachers that are like, hey, community college is doable for 2 years, and at least you can offset a lot of that income. Nobody's putting it out like that. A lot of kids are coming out with the mindset that community college is less than, and
Right.
they're going to be, not as cool if they do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that's, it
It's
doesn't, it's the
it's
same
foolish.
degree, especially when you go on to do a 4-year degree. That set 4-year degree doesn't say, oh, but I have to point out
Yeah,
they
2
didn't do
years.
2 years of community college.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it works. Turns out you just made good choices by going to community college. Now, I understand there is a different level typically in the education you get from a 4-year school and from a 2-year, but money's money. And turns out you can go to the library. You can study harder on your own if you
Mm-hmm.
want to. That's okay. And you can get a degree that backs it up. So I'm just saying, that's what I got. Now, that's what I'm preparing for, right? Is things to get out of control. I'm preparing to get out of debt. I'm preparing to be able to feed my family. I'm preparing to take care of things on my own. I'm making sure my vehicles are in working order. I'm making sure that I have a vehicle that, you know what, it's got 250,000 miles, but it's well maintained versus something that's new and has 10,000 miles on it, but I can't afford to do the maintenance
Right.
because I used all my money on the car payment.
Yeah. I
That's
see that a
where you
lot
need
with
to start making the decisions.
people that have like Mercedes or BMWs. Those are great vehicles. Those are great vehicles. But go get the alternator changed in
Yeah,
in an old Ford pickup truck and in a Mercedes and see
right.
see the
Exactly.
difference.
Well, let's say, I was talking to one of the guys, we were talking about Harleys versus Hondas. And, they're like, oh, I go get an oil change and a tune up on my Honda and it's 150. And I go
Uh huh.
get the same thing on a Harley and it's at 1,500.
Right. Yeah. A lot of these things, especially right now, a lot of people are getting deeper and deeper into debt. Like they're really getting in trouble. And it's not just you. It's not just, your neighborhood. It's all across the country. People are making less and less money compared to what their living expenses are. And it's crazy. If you see the amount of debt that people are in just over the past 5 years, insane. People are living off of credit cards right now just to just to keep the same standard of living that they've become accustomed to. And it's easy to do. It's easy to get in debt. It's easy to get credit cards. It's easy to get a loan. These things are easy. People are willing to give you as much money as you want, and they're going to get way more than what they lent you back. And it's about keeping your head when things get difficult. Really is what it comes down to.
Yeah, no, that's right. So I think the takeaway is we should be the bank and not the borrower. All right. So anyway, I really appreciate you guys being here and checking us out. Um, I need you to, appreciate you checking us out. Like and subscribe wherever you are. Leave comments, reviews. You have questions, concerns, show ideas. Email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Those of you watching us live, stick around. We're going to do another episode in the next 10 minutes. So with that, stay safe, and I will talk to you guys next week.